Well, g'day curd nerds. Today, first cheese of 2019, is Jalapeño Cheddar. Well, this cheese was very simple to make. I used a stirred curd farmhouse cheddar recipe, very similar to the one I use for my farmhouse cheddar blue. So really simple cheddaring process. And I use freshly picked jalapeno peppers from my garden. I've got a jalapeno bush that is about 3 years old and it's still producing really good chilies off the plant. Anyway, let's go and pick some jalapenos so I can show you how to make jalapeno cheddar. So here I am in the garden near my chook house called Cluckingham Palace. And I've got the jalapeno bush right there, and there's some nice looking chilies on the bush. I picked 4 of the biggest ones I could find. We're about halfway through the season, so there are some nice big green ones on there. They haven't quite gone red yet. And one more I think I need. Just got to find one. Well, that one's a bit sun damaged. There we go. So 4 nice fresh chilies. Now I took these inside and washed them, but before I started cutting them I put on some gloves. So if you don't want to get burns or touch yourself in places you shouldn't with chili juice on them, then yeah, I highly recommend gloves. So just remove the seeds of the chilies. Depends on how hot you want it. If you really want the cheese to be really hot, then you can leave the membrane and the seeds in. But I chose to take them out. I didn't want it that hot. Let's just get rid of those into the bin. And we're going to roughly chop the chilies now. I don't want it too fine. I want you to be able to see them through the cheese. So that's 3, and this is the 4th one. So it's just roughly chopping the chilies up. Okay. So we're going to put those chilies into a small pot. Oops, nearly fell over. And we're going to add a cup or 250 millilitres of water. And we're going to gently boil that for 15 minutes. Now you may need to top up the water as you go along. They've just got to be covered, that's all. So we're going to drain the chili water and we're going to retain the water. So we need all those spicy bits in the water to be added into the milk. Now I could have used a tea strainer here, but I couldn't find it, so I'm just winging it. There we go. I think I've got most of the chili water there. So keep that aside, don't throw that away. And then we're going to pour the chilies into a small bowl or ramekin, and we're going to mill these into the curds later on. Let's get them all out. There we go. All in the little bowl. So put that aside. Now the milk I'm using today is Demeter's biodynamic full cream unhomogenized milk. This is the only one I could find at short notice, so I used it, and I have used it before. It's pretty good. But there's a bit of a clump of cream on the top there. Okay, the ingredients for jalapeno peppers, as you saw, roughly chopped. 1 cup of non-chlorinated water, 10 litres of whole cow's milk, an 1/8 of a teaspoon or a dash of Mesophilic culture. I'm using a different one than I normally do. I'm using MA 4001 by Choozit, and that's mainly because on the packet it says it was the closest thing to raw milk, or the cultures in raw milk. Half a teaspoon or 2.5 mils of calcium chloride diluted in a quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water. Half a teaspoon or 2.5 mils of liquid rennet, that's single strength, diluted in quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water, and 2 tablespoons of non-iodised salt. Now you can see that I'm whisking the cream that was floating on the top back into the milk. Just whisk this as little as possible. We don't want to get too much air into the milk. And clip on your thermometer and you're right to go. So turn the heat on and heat the milk up. Whoops, new step. Add the chilli water in. Now I'd actually forgotten to turn the camera on, so that's why the jug is empty, yes. But I did put the chilli water in before I started heating up the milk. So heat your milk up to 31 degrees Celsius or 88 Fahrenheit. And then take all your utensils out, because the next step is to sprinkle over the Mesophilic starter culture. So I'm using 1/8 of a teaspoon there to sprinkle it over the top. And we're going to let that rehydrate for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, stir the starter culture through the milk. So I'm stirring here for about a minute, top to bottom, to make sure that the cream is incorporated back into the milk. Now, the temperature had crept up by 1 degree Celsius, but that's okay. Pop the lid back on, and we're going to allow that to ripen for 40 minutes at 31 Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit. Okay, after 40 minutes, just take the lid off, and I'm going to stir the cream back in again before we add any more ingredients. You can see there it floated to the top. So we're just top to bottom stirring the milk to get the cream incorporated back through. Just check the temperature. It's crept up by another degree, so it's 2 degrees warmer than it should be, but it'll cool down again when the rennet's been added and it sits there to coagulate, but that's okay. Certainly won't affect the final outcome of the cheese. Now add in the calcium chloride solution and stir that through. There we go, give it a nice stir through. Try not to break the surface of the milk. And then we're going to add the rennet to the milk. And give that a stir for no more than 1 minute. There we go, lovely. So cover that and allow the milk to set for 40 minutes at 31 Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit. So the heat's off, no more heat. Now we're going to check for a clean break. Now if you don't get a clean break, oh, there's a bit of fluff there, get rid of that. If you don't get a clean break, then wait another 10 minutes and then check it again. And that looks perfect. Nice, no sloppiness, just nice clean break there. So we're going to use my trusty curd cutter and cut the curds into 1.25 centimetre or 1/2 inch cubes. There's another bit of fluff for some reason. Anyway, get rid of that and we cut it. Now, if you find the curd is set really well, like it is here, I'm having to like kind of jolt the curd cutter. The curds just spin around. So just do your best there. And then gently pull it out. Clean it off as best you can. So that was the horizontal cuts. Now to do the vertical cuts, I normally use a curd knife, but I got this new little device from Steve Benz, and he's provided this to me, and I'm going to be having a giveaway soon. But this is a vertical curd cutter, so I'm trying to figure out how to use it here. So I'm just thinking if I just move it through like this,
it will cut the curds, which it seemed to do, which was good. Now I noticed that when you look at commercial dairies, they have their cutters moving all the time. In fact, the cutters kind of stir the curds. So you really can't cut the curds too fine using this device, because any right sized ones will go between the wires, and any not so right sized that needed to be cut actually get cut with the wires. So I managed, using this device, to get the curds cut very evenly. It's the most even I've ever had curds, so it's a great little device. So just bang that off and get as much curd as you can off it. Just makes it easier to clean. Pop the cover back on, and we're going to allow the curds to heal for 5 minutes now that we've cut them all. So once they've rested, you'll see a bit of curds, a bit of whey on the top. You can use the spoon to lift and move the curds around a little bit, just to make sure they're all cut, and they're really evenly cut, which surprised me. I was very impressed with the vertical curd cutter. So cut any large cubes if you see them with the edge of your knife. And now we're going to slowly heat the curds for 45 minutes up to 39 Celsius, 102 Fahrenheit. So this is after I've just turned the heat off there, and it's at the right temperature. And we're just going to let that settle for 30 minutes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dip off the whey down to the level of the curd. So you'll need a second pot there. Just check the temperature, it's 39, that's perfect. So dip the whey off just using a cup. Now you could use a strainer and dip the cup into the strainer so you don't get any curds, but I knew after the 30 minutes they'd all be sitting at the bottom, so there wasn't much of a chance of me getting them when I was dipping the whey off. So fairly simple, a little bit time consuming, but easy enough to do. Now we're not actually going to wash the curds or anything like that. We're just removing the curds down to, the whey down to the level of the curds. And you can just see the curds there. Lovely. Okay, now we're going to gently stir the curds in whatever whey is left over for 20 minutes. Now, maybe a bit chunky to start with, but they soon break up. They haven't matted together. So there's no heat on it. It remained at 39 Celsius the entire time while I stirred it for the 20 minutes. Now, just to check whether it's ready to go to the next stage, grab a handful of curds, give them a squeeze. If they stay together and then they come apart with your thumb, then they're ready to press. So nice little test there. If they don't stay together, then stir the curds for another 10 minutes. Now just allow that to settle for 5 minutes, makes pouring the excess whey off a little bit easier. Then over to the sink area, I'm going to drain the curds through a cheesecloth lined colander. So tip them all out. Now draining doesn't take too long, just get as much of the curds out as you can. So as soon as you got them all out, then pop them back in again. So very quick draining. They drain very quickly because of that second stirring I did. So return the curds back to the pot and let the curds rest for 5 minutes in the pot. So cover them up so you don't get any fluff and all that sort of stuff over them. I'm just breaking up any chunks there. There we go, lid on. So 5 minutes later, you'll see a little bit more whey has come out of the curd. So I'm just going to tip that off before I add the salt. So we don't want all the salt going down the sink with the whey. So 2 tablespoons of salt. So this is about 2% salt by weight. So 2 tablespoons, sprinkle that over best you can. And sprinkle the second one over the top. There we go. Now before we mill that in, we're going to add our secret ingredient, the chilies. So pour all those on top. I shouldn't have done that. Touched the chilies again with my hands. I had to wash them straight away because they started to burn. So it must be pretty powerful. Anyway, maybe I should use gloves, but my hands were clean. So just mill those through, the salt and the chili pieces through so they're evenly distributed through the curds. There we go. So make sure that your mould is lined with the cheesecloth and then fill it up with the curds and chili mix. There we go. Just make sure that the chili pieces are evenly distributed through the curd mass. You don't want them all bunching up in one area. Just do your best. It's fairly difficult to do. Okay, so just pull the cheesecloth tight whilst pressing down the curds, just to make sure there's no wrinkles in the side of the cheese. And if there's any bits of curd that have fell out, just pop them back in again. Okay, we're going to press the cheese now. So moving it over to the press. So we're going to fold one side of the cloth over and then put the follower on top. There we go. Pop it in the press. I'm going to press it 10 kilograms or 22 pounds for 1 hour. So not too tight at the start. So 1 hour to form up the rind, or help it form the rind. So just remove that from the press after the hour. And we're going to flip it over. So we've got some fairly even distribution, which is good. I was happy with that. And then turn it over and repress at 10 kilograms, 22 pounds for 1 hour. Okay, at the end of the hour, remove it from the press again. So the rind's definitely formed, which is great. Just flip that over once more. I'm going to press at 22 kilograms or 50 pounds for at least 12 hours. So max pressure on my spring. Gives me a good indication that that's 50 pounds of pressure. Okay, after the 12 hours, this is the next day for me. I'm going to remove it from the press and air dry for 3 to 4 days. And we're going to turn twice daily until it's touch dry. Now, it may be less than 3 to 4 days for you, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. So there we go, that's what it looks like, fresh out of the press. See a little bit of the chili closely packed together there, but I'm sure through the rest of the cheese it's evenly distributed. So the air dried weight is 1.064 kilograms or 2.35 pounds, and that's after it's air dried. So ripen at 10 to 13 Celsius or 50 to 55 Fahrenheit at 80% relative humidity for at least 3 months. Turn weekly for even ripening. Now you can vacuum pack it or wax.
So jalapeno cheddar, simple enough recipe to make. Just make sure that you follow all the steps. Get a clean break when your curd is set. And if the curd's not set at the specified time, then wait a little bit longer and I'm sure that if your milk is viable, then it will work. A little bit, well, not worried, I'm a little bit cautious about using fresh fruit and vegetables in my cheese because I've heard they have a tendency to rot. However, I vacuum packed the cheddar. The chillies were boiled, as you saw, for the 15 minutes, and hopefully that's going to prevent them from rotting in the cheese. The cheese is very firm and dry before I vacuum packed it, and we're just fingers crossed it should turn out to be a lovely cheese. If any of you are a little bit cautious about using fresh ingredients in your cheese, like vegetables and spices and stuff like that, then hold off until the taste test in 3 months' time before you make this cheese. Otherwise, if you're adventurous like I am, then feel free to give it a go. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, Curd Nerds. It was great to bring something that was fresh from the garden and incorporate it into my cheese for this video tutorial. If you would like to buy the kit to make this, I highly recommend the hard cheese kit. You can check that out over here. And don't forget, there are many other videos on the channel that will teach you how to make cheese. Anyway, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.